Hey there everyone, I'm Shufflecat, and we're doing another one of these Pro Tournament replay commentaries right here. This is from the Pro Tournament from yesterday, so that makes it the 23rd, and it's between this team, Cheese Belugas is on one team, and the other team is including Sig and Newbie, of course doing the typical Herald and range composition that you might see in 2v2 tournaments here. It looks like the Cold team here is controlling mid a little bit more. However, as soon as that tornado went down, mid went directly to the Warm team. However, a nice ninja grab by Newbie right there. Cheese Beluga is, of course, kind of out here in center field a little bit until that fear kind of distracted the gunner, giving range for the Nomad to escape a little bit. Sluggish goes down, it kind of hindering that ultimate at that exact moment. However, Herald does do his Chrono Flex. Nice dodge by the Blood Priest, getting out of the way of that execute. Of course, right now the gunner is over here, completely stuck. Space goes in order to save the Nomad, but it was way too late. Of course, it's just a 2v1 right here. Not completely out of the game. Sig still has full health, getting up to his first EX ability. He does have some sort of chance here. He does get the Chrono Flex. He's kind of in the corner here. Not really too much of a chance. He's now used his space. There goes the Meteor for the kill. Like I've said, that kind of the center energy at the very start of the match, it's been said that the energy pops at 1 minute and 45 seconds at this timer right up here. So whoever had control of it at that exact moment was kind of key in that round there. So once again, we see that Cold team being the aggressors, they're getting way up on that energy, but very slowly Warm team has pushed them back ever so slightly. You see that the Nomad kind of putting his feelers out, and then of course energy grab, another ninja going into the fear. Nomad way up here, kind of cutting the map in half. Gunner is a little bit stuck over here unless if he uses his space, but they gave up that key positioning in order to put more pressure on the gunner. A little bit worth it given how he now has 75% health. Herald's ultimate does go down, only catching one person, and the Nomad did block it. Of course, nice positioning here. He has his ultimate, but gets stunned right off the bat. Cheese Belugas, he did get off into this corner. He has his ultimate. He's just looking for an instance to use it, and there we go. The Herald used his space. No way for him to get out from that, except for just exceptional dodging. His ultimate was actually canceled by Blood Priest. If you're using your ultimate and Blood Priest uses his space on you, it will get canceled. Positioning once again around the center area. However, the energy won't be up for at least another 5 or so seconds. Cold positioning still on the energy rune, looking very good for Cold at this exact moment. Ultimate, almost 2 ultimates, whereas the other team only has 50%. Double ultimate going down right here. Nomad is so low, he needs that blood shield. However, they're kind of split up a little bit. Alright, so now the Nomad's down. Sig used one of his EXs at some point in there. So now they're really just exactly the opposite of what was going on in the last game, where pretty much the healer was left off all by himself. However, this Blood Priest does not have nearly as much of a chance, in my opinion. And there we go. He has silence on him, so not much of a chance at that point. So every round we've seen that Cold team has been ninjaing that energy rune right off the bat. Really good positioning from them pretty much through the entire game. The gunner has a lot of opportunity to deal damage, and that is possibly what got them the win here. I'm not sure why they're sitting still. They lost all of their previous advantage with positioning. I'm not sure if there was maybe some team discussion going on in chat at that moment, or maybe smack talk going on in all chat. But of course, naturally, they did not get the energy right off the bat like they usually did. That could cost them quite a bit. We see that they are, of course, pushing back Warm team all this way, but Warm team really probably doesn't even care about that. A lot of interrupts on that gunner. He tried to do his execute at least twice. It was canceled at least once. Probably should have just completely forgot about it. See a lot of executes coming from this gunner as he's way up close. Of course, the Nomad's ultimate coming out. Couple of really good hits on this Herald. He didn't have his Chrono Flux up at the time, so taking him down to half health. He's of course gotten his full recovery back up. Ultimate goes down from the Herald. Not very good positioning on it though, so it didn't get any good hits. Gunner's almost got his ultimate up. Gonna have to see where that goes to. A little bit of a whiff on that space. It did take him to kind of good positioning. This execute once again getting canceled. There goes the ultimate. Kind of good damage right there, taking down the Nomad to quarter health, and of course the Herald does capitalize on that. Very nice for him to finish off that kill. Blood Priest ultimate goes down. Newbie spaces out of it. Very little damage actually from that. Once again, finishing off the Blood Priest exactly last. That's the type of thing that you normally tend to see in kind of higher up levels of play, is that for the most part people will focus more on the DPSer and less on the healer in the very beginnings, and leaving the healer for last because he has less chance of dealing enough damage. So here we go. We see even more positioning on this rune from the Cold team. Cheese Belugas, he seems like he's kind of gotten into the swing of this. He doesn't seem to be worrying so much about middle. He seems to just concede it directly. And right here we see a kind of a big push after they've gotten the rune, is now when the Blood Priest is getting really aggressive. Especially probably what I was talking about, where everybody is focusing on the DPSer. So why not put your healer right up front, so that if they try to focus on him, try and capitalize on that, then you can just run away. Oh, nice juke from the Nomad. He moved in one direction while using his haste and then turned around. That was why that execute missed. Same kind of positioning we see from here, and that Gunner, every time he tries to start up a execute, it gets canceled almost immediately, and then he starts to back up again. But at that point, you've lost the element of surprise. There's not really all that much you can do. That one did hit. That was a really good hit there. But of course, his ultimate gets canceled from an EX X Strike. That wasn't so good. Of course, naturally, the EX X Strike does actually stun, which is pretty good, and it's a good way of canceling that. See, at least 2 or 3 executes once again. Bad positioning for the Gunner. Not very good at all. The Herald, he did grab the energy rune while that was going on, so that was probably why he didn't have the exact timing to get back and heal up his Nomad. Kind of a little bit of priority check right there. So at this point, once again, healer's left all by himself. That same focus on the DPSer that we've been seeing this whole game completely. Of course, you see right there, the Blood Shield was on the Nomad, and the Blood Priest was actually behind the Nomad. Very good positioning for that in order to use your teammate as a meat shield when he has the shield on himself. That is a pretty good idea, and can actually do a lot of damage to the other team. So here we go into the 5th round here. Gonna see if we get even the same kind of positioning. Herald using his space in the very start in order to get that positioning on the energy rune in the start. Insects go out. The fear on the Nomad. Blood Shield used way back here where he doesn't have much chance of getting DPS. He didn't even capitalize on it and move straight up. You see a haste going into M1s into the center here. That Gunner's been using his execute all game long, and it doesn't seem to be doing him all that much good, unless if he's just using it purely for zoning. And we see the Herald's ultimate only silences the Nomad, not getting a lot of damage from it. But now we see a Gunner's ultimate out of nowhere, doing a little bit of damage, mostly to the Blood Priest. It seems like Warm Team is just doing the zoning game over here. They know that they have the advantage, given that Nomad has faster M1s and a lot more zoning techniques than Gunner does. Now going directly into the center, energy is not anywhere near up. Blood Priest ultimate coming out, doing not all that much, but kind of just delaying any actions from the Gunner. We see that the Nomad's keeping permanently full recovery health. A silence goes down on the Blood Priest, but there's not really all that much that they do in order to capitalize on that. Gunner has ultimate, just looking for positioning, or hope that it doesn't see any kind of interruption. There's the Blood Priest space, but he's too far away, just barely out of range. So the Blood Priest is going to get way back up to full recovery health. Juking a execute there from Worm Team. Energy runes almost up. Blood Priest has his ultimate. There goes Herald's ultimate, capitalizing on a nice fear. So Cold Team does get the energy rune from that point, how they were pressuring so much around the time when it was coming up. Nomad is using Bloodline Medallion and Blood Priest is covering him. Very nice positioning there. However, Herald spaces directly into an ult and EX1 composition. That was not nice for him whatsoever. So for the first time ever, we have just the ranged Bloodline left. That stealth was probably a little bit predictable, and everybody knew exactly where he was, going directly into his ultimate. A little bit productive there, given how he did take off the recovery health of the Nomad. However, it came right back up to white, yes, pretty quickly. Almost got his EX. There's his EX. We're going to have to see if he uses it for an EX execute. There we have the spell block, and he didn't end up using it. He might have been able to use it for a pushback, and that's probably what he was waiting for, was a positioning where he could use the EX mortar in order to push people back into the fog. That might have been what he was waiting for, or he was just going to use it for an EX execute when he lined two people up. Once again, we see the Herald spaces in, goes directly into fear, and a mortar from the gunner. Probably the same thing that we've been seeing from them the whole time, and so therefore Worm Team has gotten used to it, and that's why we've seen this kind of laid back positioning from them, where they don't seem to be too involved until later on. Trying to get around this Chronoflux, the Nomad takes a fear to the knee, and then using the EX fear in order to escape the Blood Priest, it gets all the way almost up to full recovery health. The Nomad's looking pretty good in the normal health until he takes that. An ultimate, double ultimate coming from Cold Team. The Herald's ultimate only hits the Nomad though. And of course, a fear takes the Blood Priest way back here. He doesn't have any opportunity to heal. Nomad all the way down to quarter health. He might actually go down here. Not too much. Last stand on the Nomad. Completely full recovery health. He's going back in. Nope, that didn't look too good. Two ultimates countering each other. I think Herald actually has the advantage right there. That's of course why Nomad does go down. Only thing protecting this Blood Priest is the Blood Shield. Fear cancels the Gunner's ultimate. Very nice there. I'm gonna use the Blood Priest ultimate in order to heal himself and do a little bit of damage, but it gets canceled and not much he can do after that. So in this game, we're seeing pretty much a lot of mind games and zoning techniques that seem to be what's pretty much determining how things go in the very beginnings here when we see all these abilities being thrown out. Worm Team, until now, has been really defensive, really conceding the center. Here we might see the Worm Team pick up, but no, using the Chronoflux in order to block off the center, the Herald does pick it up. However, the Gunner for this whole time has been way up here, taking quite a bit of DPS, all the way down to half health now. Doesn't know that the Nomad has his ultimate. However, Chronoflux, really good timing right there. Covering up the Gunner's ultimate. Didn't do all that much damage. Of course, the Blood Priest is at half health because of it. But besides that, not all that much. Splitting up the Worm Team, it's kind of more like surrounding the Cold Team at this point. Does hit and execute. That's huge right there, especially since he's not getting direct healing. It's a little bit at max range. The Herald tries to block off the Blood Priest, but it looks like they're going to get back together anyway. And the Herald's so low right now. He took a meteor. That's not good. He's trying to heal through it, but he gets taken out by insects. A small dot, yes, but it can kill you. So Gunner was trying to charge up and execute again, but gets interrupted by Tornado, and that spells the end for the Cold Team right here. We're looking for one more win from the warm team in order to complete this series, or 2 wins from the cold team in order to come back from what seems to be a mostly one-sided game here. Once again, a space from the Herald into Fear, and there's the Mortar once again. See a responsive kind of wind bomb at that point. Seems like the warm team really just bides their time. They wait until all of that barrage of stuff happens and concedes the middle, and then after the energy rune was taken, Blood Shield on the Nomad into kind of a tornado call, focusing mostly on the gunner right here. And of course then we see kind of a switch in positioning, and then a little bit of dancing. It seems like the cold team waits for their cooldowns to come off, and then they do some burst damage using the Blood Shield. Seems to be their opener at this point, followed by a wind bomb in order to shut down the gunner. If the wind bomb doesn't hit, it seems like the Nomad doesn't go in. So looking at a lot of positioning work here with the Nomad kind of just biding his time over here. See that the Nomad's taking a hell of a lot of damage, possibly because he was stuck over here for so long, didn't want to go to the other side, and now he's down to about 15% health. He really needs some heals, but the Chronoflex blocks that one M2. That could have been huge. The Herald's ultimate didn't hit the Nomad. If it did, that would have been pretty much the end of that Nomad. Nomad has his ultimate. Gunner has his ultimate. Nomad apparently used the EX, or maybe it was a medallion. But Gunner still has his ultimate. Trying to see what the positioning is going to be. See insects go out. Probably waiting for a space at someone. Right here we see that the ultimate did hit the Nomad. He's getting real low on health at this point, but he has his ultimate, so there goes the Herald, due to the Gunner's not being there in order to back up his healer. Could potentially see some kind of comeback from here. There we see the EX Mortar, but the Nomad is healing in the corner. He knows that the Blood Priest has it all. And there we go for the first round for the Pro Tournament. I'm going to see you in the next match here in a second. And welcome back. We're into game number 2 of round 1 of the Super Pro Cup from December 23rd. You could probably hear in my voice that last game I was kind of running a little bit low on fluid in my mouth, so I was getting a little dry mouth there. But never fear, I actually got myself some water, so we're not going to have a problem whatsoever with that. We're of course seeing a game between The Illusion, I hope I pronounced that correctly, and didn't get any coins. Douchey Hu Yu and Zowie of course didn't get any coins, and the one that I can't pronounce is of course the warm team with Ekrius and Aspen. I'm pretty sure I pronounced that right. Anyway, so we're seeing kind of an aggressive style from the cold team, pushing everybody back to the spawn area here. Of course, Blood Priest is of course really good at deterring any pressure on them, and we see a 1 versus 1 between the healers here. I kind of feel like the Ranid came out ahead in there. Of course, he does have his ultimate right here. He might be lining up for, there we go, double ultimate. The Thorn has already used his shield, and we saw right there that the space of the Thorn was in fact spell blocked. So that meant that he ate all of the damage from that ultimate, and the Blood Priest wasn't even there to heal him up afterwards. So we did see a little bit of a chase to the Thorn, but saw eventually that that was no-go whatsoever. Blood Priest does throw up his shield in order to help against this. We do see another ultimate from the Ranid. Is he going to do this again? Thorn's shield has already been used, but he only gets one of the opponents, and Blood Priest is way down low at about 15% health, throws up his blood shield. There's the Thorn shield, all the way up at full recovery health. He's going to need a little bit of help in order to get back up again. And we do see 2 ultimates here. No, actually Blood Priest used his EX, so he doesn't have anything for that. Thorn ultimate, a little bit of a whiff, I suppose. He does get his M1 blocked at this point. He could potentially pull it out, but never mind. It's already too late. So we do see that the Cold team does have a composition that is pretty aggressive. Pomp is good in melee range, and of course Ranid is very good at being aggressive, and then defensive, switching between the offensive and aggressive in order, depending on what the situation is. That's probably why we're seeing the Warm team get pushed way back into the spawn box. Again, we see Spiritual Link go out, doesn't hit anyone. The Thorn Shield gets interrupted, see him go down to 75% health. The Cloak goes out, he was going for the Blood Priest, but the Blood Priest had none of that. Warm team does get the end cap on the Cold team's healer. Cold team, that Ranid was way too low, so the Pomp does switch him out, puts him on the other side. Now the Pomp is a little bit vulnerable, and the Thorn picked up on that, but the Pomp was good enough in order to kind of make himself a little bit inconvenient to attack at that exact moment. Spell blocking the Thorn's M2 ran in a little bit of trouble, but there was other side in order to help him. Ranid's getting a little bit close to his ultimate. It looks like he might be working on getting another one of those doubles. We see Thorn Shield go out, but Ranid can't get his ultimate in time, in my opinion, but he still uses it anyway on the Thorn. Thorn has his space. There we go. He does avert all of the damage, but then he uses his own, and taking off a little bit of health. The Pomp doesn't have any recovery health, so both of those fungal spores were good. He does apply a weaken on the Psychopomp, so any heals that she tries to get off from this point on is going to be a little bit EXV right there, pushing the Thorn away. He uses his shield on himself, but he doesn't get any hits. Granted, a little bit low, but very nice other side, gets him out of danger. However, the Psychopomp is still left all by herself. Manages to dodge a fear by using EX space. This is really close right here. Can't really tell any kind of advantage except for the Blood Priest uses his ultimate. Everybody got blind from that point on. And the Ranid appears to be, yes, he's healing off in the corner, leaving the Pomp to fend for herself. He did get a little bit of health. We can check at the end of this round to see if that might have been worth it or not, but I did see him taking a hit to the face directly afterwards, so he might have actually lost it all. Ranid now has his ultimate. See if he can get another one of those doubles. The Thorn uses his energy on an EX, so he's not going to use his ultimate anytime soon. Spaces into shield, so now he has absolutely nothing to prevent himself from getting killed from that ultimate. It goes straight through the blood shield and takes out the Thorn. So we see a lot of kind of clutch plays around these ultimates to kind of determine who's going to be the victor at that point. We saw that a Blood Priest did use his ultimate on both of his opponents at the same time. However, at that exact moment, he might have been weakened or something similar, and that was probably why that didn't have a full effect. We see that the Ranid, he really just walks up. He wasn't even dodging anything. Not that there was anything to dodge. Goes up and takes off 25% of the Blood Priest health into a blind, taking off even more, and going into the darts into bomb combo, into a stun, and there's the EX Fear, but he just completely dodges it using a ultimate attack on the Thorn. He takes a whole lot of punishment at that point, all the way down to 25% health from a combo from the Psychopomp, where he increases the damage possibly with Spiritual Link. Now this Blood Priest, he does have his EX ability. The stun is going off on the Blood Shield, but it doesn't much matter at that point. The Pomp could have just healed him back up, and he didn't even break his own recovery health with that move. Could have been doing more damage to the Psychopomp. Might have actually been able to kill her, maybe with an EX Insects, but she probably could have mind transferred at that point. So going into the fourth round here, it seems pretty one-sided, except for the exception with a couple of rounds. Now, the Blood Priest did take a little bit of damage from that initial space. The Pomp putting the Blood Priest in position for a stun, but the Ranid doesn't feel into it at that exact moment, but instead lets the Blood Priest escape. Spaces in a little bit to the side. He gets hit by insects, decides to move out from that instead of taking endless M1s to the face. Does get this stun off on the Blood Priest. positioning over in this area in order to get the heals off. We see almost a double ultimate from the Worm team. The Blood Priest has been holding on to this ultimate for who knows how long, into the EX Sphere. Now he's not going to be able to use it, but the Pomp uses her other side. We see that the Thorn used his shield, so we might be seeing a burst sometime soon from the Cold team. Probably has his shield back up again. We see a 1 versus 1 on this Blood Priest here between the Ranid, and we see an other side in order to avoid that damage. After the Ranid had used all of his outs, pretty much EX space to put the Blood Priest in position for this ultimate here. Double ultimate. The Thorn did take it. His shield did end too soon into a stun. He has his shield up now, but will it be too late? There we go. A meteor finishes off the Thorn. He was getting out of line of sight of the Blood Priest, so there wasn't anything he could have done at that point. We do see a defensive Blood Shield, but once again, doesn't matter all that much. Into Toxin Bomb. EX Sphere goes down on the Pomp. More stuns on the Blood Priest, and there he goes down. Okay, so what the Worm team could possibly be doing against this composition is possibly trying to be more aggressive on the center. I do not see the Thorn spacing onto the center at all, which is where Thorn is usually at home, and in fact a Blood Priest would probably be a-okay in order to deal with that. He seems to be doing a very passive kind of defensive style. The Ranid wasn't even going for the Blood Priest at that point. He was just using it as a fear tactic in order to make the Thorn use all of his outs in order to, or rather all of his defensive abilities into thin air. He's all the way down at 25% health. Blood Priest uses his EX Fear in order to get out of the way, and Ranid just stomps him. And we do see Thorn has almost full energy. Only one target on that ultimate from the Ranid, but it doesn't much matter because that ends the game right there. Congratulations to didn't get any coins for their victory. So now we're going to go into the third game right here. Welcome back to game number 3. We have Outcast goes to the gym versus Sup Fresh. Now this seems to be a little bit of smack talk because Outcast is not actually on the team Outcast goes to the gym. It is actually the Worm team is called Outcast, and Sup Fresh is in fact the one that has Outcast. So I'm not entirely sure what that inside joke is there, but we do see the Stalker goes into space, into Puncturing Strike there. Does interrupt the Gunner's execute, but he does do an EX execute into a Meteor. We do see that Outcast is doing a little bit of damage to the Stalker. He's down to about 50% health, but he does have the recover health in order to protect that. Space into Puncturing Strike, doesn't hit anything. Astronomer was being a little bit aggressive there. Did get a deadly injection for his trouble. Puncturing Strike in order to dodge that execute right there. Nice timing. Taking out the Astronomer right there. I'm not entirely sure what I saw there. It looked like an EX mortar and he dispelled the blind. And of course we see a little bit of trolling from the Stalker. He uses his ultimate and just jumps around the field while the Gunner just sits there and takes it. So we see a little bit of a, probably a disadvantage based off of map because of composition. The Cold team is of course a ranged team, but this map probably favors a melee composition a little bit more. Of course, we do see the healer is a melee, being an Astronomer, of course. And we did see for a little bit there that there was a 1 versus 1 of healers. It was not exactly a even exchange. The Worm team came out a little bit ahead there, interrupting the Astronomer's ultimate using Puncturing Strike. A little bit late at that moment. He did take a little bit of damage, but it's okay. He's at pretty much 25% damage. And of course we still see the barrier on the Stalker. It goes down, and of course right then and there is when the Gunner unleashes a whole slew of damage. We saw a crippling shot in there, spell block in order to do a whole lot of damage with an EX execute, and that took off pretty much half of the Stalker's remaining health all the way down to death, while the Alchemist didn't even have the chance in order to do an M2 because he was too busy with the Astronomer. So, we're going to see what happens here. The Gunner does use a space in the very beginning in order to get some map control, but that was pretty much negated by a puncturing strike. We see that Execute has gone down, and Mortar has gone down, and Moonstone has gone down, so there's not much threat for the Stalker. Alchemist does, Astronomer goes in. We saw Barrier got broke, so Alchemist is going to move back a little bit. We see Gunner doing a little bit of posturing. He wasn't actually threatening the Alchemist, he just wanted to make him move back even more so they could do damage on this Stalker, taking all of his health all the way down to 15%, making that a last stand trigger. And of course now we also see the punishment of using that barrier on the Stalker. The Astronomer used his ult on the Alchemist, taking him down to 50% health, and at this point there's not all that much he can do. He was in stone and took out the Stalker, while the Alchemist couldn't do anything about it. So we see a lot of kind of timing based around this barrier. Seems like everybody's got their watch set based off of the Alchemist barrier, because everything seems to revolve around when that is going to happen. We see a Mortar hits directly onto the Alchemist, throws a Clarity somewhere out here for some reason. Alchemist moves back in order to dodge that Execute. That might mean that he doesn't have enough map presence when this rune comes up. We're going to see who grabs it right here. Of course it is Worm Team. So this Stalker, he's going to get his ult a little bit faster, decides to use a meteor, does do good damage. That's 500 damage across the entire team. Here his ultimate is, gets it again, does use the space in order to get up close with the Astronomer. There's all that damage going down on the Astronomer. Not much that can be done in terms of peeling that off. But we see a Dark Blade going on to the Gunner that takes him out of combat for a little while. Astronomer's almost down. There's a Deadly Injection. That was nice. Takes him out almost immediately. And we see the EX buff on the Gunner. He was trying to use an EX Execute, but he got slept at that point. Stealth and a barrier in order to dodge that. And we did see that the Alchemist got behind this wall in order to dodge that barrier, that Execute, using his EX Mortar in order to push back this Stalker. But we see a little bit of a spin from him. I suppose that he's given up a little bit. And there we go. Stalker finishes him off. So, we're seeing a lot more damage numbers from the Stalker than from the Astronomer, which of course is natural coming from a healer standpoint. But as an Astronomer, you cannot overheal this Alchemist over here. So he might need to be getting a little bit more aggressive. There we do see he spaces in order to get that weaken and some damage off, but he's leaving the Gunner a little bit to himself. Getting rid of a Stalker as a ranged is pretty tough to do. See more aggression against this Alchemist, but it took him a little while to hit that first M1. Trying to go back to the Gunner, using the stun in order to get off a Moonstone, trying to combo up. There's the Execute, but a Deadly Injection goes on the Astronomer. That's alright though, because his recovery health did absorb all of the damage. Once again, just as soon as the Astronomer goes aggressive on the Alchemist is right when we see the Gunner take a huge amount of damage from the Stalker. And that is exactly what we're seeing there. The Astronomer's not really doing all that much. He seemed to just let the Alchemist take him out. But we did see that the Stalker was healing up. It is a good idea, and I do approve that if you feel like you're ahead, that you should get more ahead. You know, if you feel like your teammate can handle a situation, that you can go off and use your Bloodline Medallion. But if you don't feel like you can, then probably don't do that. Once again, we see a Mortar, but it does get dodged. Usually Puncturing Strike going on around there. I see a offensive barrier dealing a little bit of damage, but it gets healed up. Then going into the Space Puncturing Strike. See a Cloak in order to avoid some damage. Deadly injection on the Astronomer, but he uses his trance. Might have actually have dodged that damage. Seeing a lot of damage going on to this Astronomer right here. Heard a Breakstone. He dodged the Moonstone using his Breakstone. Very nice timing right there in order to deal even more damage before the Astronomer could even do anything about it. Of course, using his EX Mortar still in order to push back this Stalker. And there's the clarity in order to take that off. So, probably Worm Team being the aggressors with their offensive barriers. That is, of course, a good move, but can be punished really easily. Possibly they're choosing to do that because they see how quickly the gunner gets to the center. They know that he's using his space in order to get that close up, and they know that if there's a barrier up on the Stalker, that they can't do anything to really do anything about that, pretty much. We see the ultimate from the Stalker. It's got barrier on it. This would be a prime opportunity to get on the Alchemist, but not all that many opportunities to do that when you're trying to peel a malicious Stalker off of your Astronomer. We did see an EX Mortar go towards the Alchemist, but that missed. Another offensive barrier. Gunner trying to capitalize on that. Everybody's spacing on the Gunner, on the Alchemist. Sorry about that. We do see the Alchemist go down to quarter health, accidentally hitting this wall with that execute, but he does manage to make up for it with the ultimate on the Alchemist and does kill him right then and there. Now, it's not technically over, especially not if you're a Stalker. Stalkers can do 2v1s, maybe a little bit easier than some Bloodlines, but still taking way too much damage from that Gunner. A lot of dead-on M1s at that point. Were almost predictive, like spider senses kind of M1s coming out there, and did take him out. So we could see a comeback here from the Cold Team. We do only need one more game from the Worm Team. Up there was a barrier for the win right there. Just as soon as that that execute went down, we actually saw it get blocked. But it doesn't matter because Stalker's down to a quarter health. We do see a Gunner's ultimate, but it took him all the way down to 15% health during the process. Do see a lot of damage going down on the Alchemist. Didn't have any recovery health to deal with that. Stalker is trying to heal up, but it keeps on getting interrupted by pressure on the Alchemist, or there goes the ultimate from the Astronomer, trying to pillar a little bit, but he might actually go down at this point. We saw a spell block try to hit the Alchemist, but he was just a little bit out of range at that point. Barrier going down just before the Moonstone, and there's the Astronomer in his Dark Blade. He might be able to take out the Stalker here. It does get the Moonstone on the healer if he can. There we go, Moonburst. Now, all he has to do is pretty much play the defensive game. In this kind of a matchup, Alchemist versus Astronomer, you can really play the burst game where you space in, you try and trance out. There he goes. He tried to trance out, but the Alchemist juked it. At this point, you then have to worry about whether or not you get hit by the deadly injections here. He's probably going to try and trance out again, but there was the deadly injection that goes straight through it. And a Moonstone in order to keep him still while he heals up his health. Moonburst. He does hit the barrier with his M1s. And at this point, we do see a lot of recovery health from the Alchemist. The deadly incident injection, in fact, goes straight through. And we could see another ultimate from the Alchemist here. He does get some energy from that Moonburst into a Moonburst, actually. And there goes the barrier down. And fourth win for the Cold Team. Here we could see a complete comeback from the Cold Team. If they win this, then that's pretty much game for them. So it's an ace match here, going either way for anyone. Very exciting to see who comes out on top here. We do see another initial space, and that could prompt a barrier onto the Stalker. There we go. But the Alchemist did did get hit by the execute. He was a little bit too close in range, so that prompted him to try and F1. Meanwhile, the Stalker was taking huge amounts of damage. Everybody is going offensive, pushing the Worm team all the way back into their spawn box. We do see an EX Mortar. It doesn't hit anything, but that does allow the Cold team to reset. Barriered Stalker is frozen in stone. That allows the Astronomer to go offensive. And of course we do see another one of those Moonstones, but the Stalker uses Breakstone. Here comes the ultimate. The Alchemist doesn't have a barrier in response to this, and the Moonstone allowing the Astronomer more time in order to get recovery health back up to everybody. As Alchemist doesn't have any recovery health at this moment, so stun from the Gunner into M1 from the Astronomer. More recover health going up for the Cold team. This could be a very nice position for them. Gunner's ultimate directly 2 shots on the Alchemist, losing quite a bit of real health at that point. And a missed execute. The Astronomer's taking a lot of damage from the Stalker, but he gets Moonstoned and he breaks it. But the Alchemist doesn't have all that much. He puts up his barrier into Deadly Injection. Here comes the Astronomer just as the barrier ends. There goes the Alchemist. He goes down. This is pretty a good position for the Cold team as they win. So congratulations to Team Subfresh for their victory right here. So we're going to go into game number 4 right now. Here we go into game number 4. This is the final game of round 1. From this point on, we're going to see all of the teams from round 1 against all of the other ones that we've seen. Now, a little bit of an interesting decision from Cold Team to go double DPS. But before we talk about that, Cold Team's team is called Space Pirates, and Warm Team's is Laggett Post DC. I'm not sure what that means, but it sounds kind of cool. We see the Space and the Puncturing Strike, but it was other-sided, so that didn't do any damage. And we see that there's a little bit of a 1 versus 1, but Nopa doesn't want to go up against a melee. We do see the Blood Grip on the Pomp. I'm pretty sure that was meant for the NG. Centerbolt on the Engineer right there. We do see the Stalker going straight onto the Psychopomp into an EMP. That bursts him down. We do see that the Harbinger spaces onto himself. That's probably for the hemorrhage so that he can gain a little bit of health. He's trying to escape, but he does get tractor beamed into the little troll medallion death symbol right there. So definitely Cold Team. Very interesting for them to pick a double DPS, but it does give them a lot of offensive capabilities because they both have bloodlines that can't really be stopped per se. So we do see the space into Puncturing Strike. It wasn't other side this time, possibly in order to save it for a bit later. We do see the spell block did not hit any one of the abilities. Nether Shift to get a little bit of extra health. Psychopump's down at 25% health. Bugged down. I'm not sure if she's on the other side. Guess not. Anyway, down to about 10% health. Does do a Mind Transfer in order to escape. And another side. No outs at this point. Does get bursted down. Once again, we see that EMP in order to do a little bit of damage. Do see an EX Shadow Bolt, and the Engineer decides to F1 in the corner. Does get a EX Shadow Bolt to the face in order to interrupt that, but it doesn't much matter. He had a Flamethrower in order to counter that. So these rounds pretty quick due to the nature. If the Warm Team can find a way of surviving for, say, 30 seconds, then they will start to get the advantage because of their healing and because of their ability to amplify with Shadow Bolts and do a lot of defensive with the fact that other side can be used on either one of them. Now, other side is used. Harbinger is taking a lot of damage, does get hit by a meteor, misses his Shadow Bolt, and there was the Blood Grip, but he was in-capped from a conch shell. Stalker does go down. So at this point we are seeing the 30-second mark where I was saying that they might start to get an advantage. Of course, naturally, if somebody of the other team does go down, you're probably going to get an advantage anyway. The Psychopomp is a low. He needs to look out for this ultimate here, but he did have other side in order to escape. Engineer getting a little bit stuck on this wall, does get hit by Mind Transfer, and that takes him out just as soon as the energy comes up. So there we go. We did see some pretty good defensive tactics. The other side was used, and then of course focus was switched over to the Harbinger, where he can then use Nether Shift. So it's really good at being a juggling composition right here. So we do see that the Black Dagger goes out on the Cycle Pump. Good time for them to attack the Harbinger, but not all that much damage going out on him. Haven't seen any healing. The Nether Shift did block a little bit of the healing. It seemed like the Harbinger was using the Cycle Pump as a meat shield at that point. Conch Shell does go down, but doesn't hit anything. Black Dagger is spell blocked, so we're not going to see any focusing at that point. Using the Blood Grip a lot in order to keep this team together. But last stand on the Harbinger, he was moving away from the Cycle Pump. And that was probably what caused him to die. If he would have moved in the other direction, he might have been able to take at least 1 or 2 M2s from his Cycle Pump. But of course, who knows if that would have actually saved his life. That is, of course, that what-if game. Okay, so going into the 5th round right here. This could lead to a 4th victory for the Cold team. Playing a little bit passively as opposed to the last time. That puncturing strike after space was a little bit late in comparison to normal, but did have the effect of doing some damage. The Engineer taking a lot of damage. He pops his Gurgan in order to reduce some of it, but of course now it's down. He's at 15% health, using his last stand barrier at this point. Stalker does go down, and here goes down the Engineer. So that was one of those kind of quick encounters where the Cold team kind of seemed to delay a little bit in the start. I'm not sure what their plan was when they were delaying during that first part, but with their composition, they might need to jump directly into the fight and just have it go balls to the walls from the start. Once you give the Cycle Pump time to start casting things like Spiritual Link, and we do see that there's a zoning game going on with this Harbinger. He's using the spell block in order to keep people away. So other side, in order to get him out of the into Nether Shift, 2 defensive abilities at the same time. Lots of damage going down on the Engineer, but he uses his Gurgans. Lots of damage on the Harbinger due to that meter. He dodges out of it. We might see him F1 in the corner. Instead, he's trying to hit Inflection. He's trying to get a little bit of healing. Black Dagger on the Cycle Pump in order to focus down the Harbinger, but that's not working out too well. He did have Nether Shift at that time. We did see F1 from the Engineer. He did get quite a bit of health, but it was all taken off by that Harbinger when he attacked him. We could see the Engineer go down at this point. The Cycle Pump certainly does have the ability to do that with an EX. There goes an M1, but the Conch Shell went out just in time in order to incap the Cycle Pump, and that of course spelled a disaster for him. Once again, kind of a defensive game from the Warm team. They were doing that zoning in the beginning, which was really good. However, the Cold team found a situation that they could jump in, and that was all that they needed. Even more zoning, no damage from that EMP, no puncturing strike in cap at all. Cold team's taking way more damage than they need to at this point. Both of them on Cold team is at 75%. Nice pull from the Harbinger, preventing that damage on the Cycle Pump. He's healing back up. However, Ghost Dagger on the Harbinger, he was taking a lot of damage. They could get on the Stalker, but he moves off to the side right there. We do see that the Cycle Pump does have ultimate, but uses his EX space instead. Could see a kill here on the Engineer, but instead they went for the Stalker, given how he was being more aggressive, and an Affliction right there in order to push him back some. Engineer does get the energy. He could unleash an ultimate at this point, but he was killed by Nether Shift. That extra speed from the Harbinger's Nether Shift can make him catch up with you a little bit faster than usual. At this point, it looks like it could be anyone's game. The Warm team could come out with 2 victories at this point. No one can really tell. Looks like a little bit of zoning using that Shadow Bolt sound in order to push back the Cold Team again. A juked Spiritual Link in order to do it even more. They have control of the energy rune, but they didn't want to get any damage from that Puncturing Strike. Nice dodge. So we do see a lot of damage once again on the Cold Team. A little bit of aggressiveness from the Stalker. He did get pushed back using the Fear. Ghost Dagger on the Harbinger so that they're focusing all their attention on the Cycle Pump. But the Stalker does go down due to an Affliction and quite a bit of M1 damage from the Cycle Pump. Here we could see the Cycle Pump go down, but he had other side at that exact moment. So that saved him from all of that. So, we've got ourselves another H match. All of these games are coming up really close, and of course, I like that because I like watching Bloodline Champions. So we're going to see right here if we see some kind of aggressive zoning techniques from the Worm Team. It does look like there goes the Blood Grip and the Shadow Bolt, but the Stalker had none of that. He just went ahead and incapped him using the Puncturing Strike. Still see quite a bit of damage going on the Cold Team. Seems like the Worm Team has gotten their game. They know exactly what the patterns are. But the Harbinger goes down due to a whole lot of burst. And the Ghost Dagger on the Pomp. He does use the other side in order to escape. But they knew exactly where he was going to go. There we see a Spell Block and a Shrink. We're going to see exactly what happens here. An EX space directly to the Engineer. He didn't want to have any of that, so he just spaces away. Looks like Cold Team, they've got their advantage, and exactly what I meant when you're ahead, you know, just keep on getting farther ahead. And there we do see a Meteor capitalizing on that incap from the Stalker. Cold Team does come ahead. Congratulations to Space Pirates for their victory. They're going on to round number 2, and we're going to be looking into that in just a moment. Welcome back. We've made it to round number 2. This is game number 5 between Billowing Belugas on the Worm Team and didn't get any coins on the Cold Team. We did see didn't get any coins on the second game there. They did go up against a Zolugan, and that, of course, was the Thorn and Blood Priest composition. We do see the Blood Priest here and the Nomad from the first game. Still seeing this really aggressive composition, and, of course, the same playstyle that they had in the first game there. But they do seem to be backing off a little bit for that energy. They possibly see the amount of pressure relief that the Blood Priest can do, so the Ranid, being a little bit defensive, uses his lunge in order to get in and then spaces out. And there we see an EX space in order to push the Blood Priest a little bit back. They're possibly zoning in order to get a fast ultimate using this energy rune, but the Blood Priest actually has his ultimate first. We'll see how that plays out. There's the ultimate from the Ranid. He's trying to line him up. He does get the Blood Priest, but misses the Nomad completely. Big burst going down on this Blood Priest. He did go down to 15% or less, but immediately healed back up using his ultimate. The Ranid is real low. He wants to try to heal back up, but of course that's putting the Cycle Pump at risk. Uses his ultimate once again in order to get a double. But it didn't matter because he took an insect to the face, and after that, it wasn't too pretty for him. So that was a whole lot of burst and coordination, but we see that the Worm Team did come ahead, possibly because of that really clutch self-healing ultimate from the Blood Priest. We do know that, of course, the Cycle Pump doesn't have a ultimate that can heal himself while dealing damage at the same time. He does have to choose between the two. So that could be a disadvantage for the Cold Team. We do see, of course, the same aggressive behavior from the Cold Team that we've always had, pushing their enemies all the way back to the spawn box. But like we've seen from the Worm Team in their first game, they don't really seem to care. They don't care if you take the energy room. They don't care if you are aggressive and push them back. They really just play a really defensive kind of turtle style where they sit back and they wait for the exact moment that that they can utilize. We do see a stun into ultimate on the Blood Priest, and the Cycle Pump was taken down, but the ultimate was dodged using the Blood Priest space. He does have ultimate, and he uses it on himself in order to heal. Cold Team's Ranid seems to be doing a little bit of damage to this Nomad, but of course the Blood Priest can out-heal all of that. We do see he has ultimate here. He's trying to line it up, and he might actually get it right there. And the Blood Priest, he seems to still have space, so he's not necessarily going to take all that much damage from it. Could see a EX from the Blood Priest, but not before the Ranid goes down. So yes, we do see a turtle style from the Cold Team. I mean, not from the Cold Team, from the Warm Team. Of course, that is because of their composition. Can do quite a bit of turtle. We'll see how the Cold Team switches up their tactics at this point. So we do see a space immediately from the Ranid, and the Warm Team even accentuating their turtle style, just moving backwards. We do see an other side on the Ranid in order to get him out of there. He might have been a little bit too far up. There's the energy rune. Ranid does take it. He does have an EX, but the Blood Priest does just jump away. I think this Ranid might be a little bit too predictable using his stealth. The fact that he runs towards the nearest person means that whoever is nearby can really just run away. Does get a stun on the Nomad. He does have his ultimate. He's possibly trying to get it lined up. I did see him try to cast it, but it got interrupted by the knockback on that Nomad Q. He's trying to line up once again. It does hit the Blood Priest shield, and he didn't have his space up at that exact moment, so he does go down to 50% health. We do see a lot of damage being thrown both ways. The Blood Priest hasn't been able to be taken down any whatsoever. Lots of damage from the Ranid because he took an insect and didn't necessarily have a way of escaping from that. He does space out now. He's below 15% health, and they're possibly, the Warm Team is possibly trying to focus them. We see that he's now F1ing off in the corner. I'm going to switch positions over to this Cycle Pump so that we can get a little bit of a better view, except that's not working out too well. Let's see if smart camera, everybody is off to the sides. So everyone on the Cold Team at that point was trying to F1 up, and the Warm Team was, of course, getting more energy because of that lack of presence. We do see a lineup here for the Ranid's ultimate, but it wasn't timed correctly, so it was only on the Blood Priest, but he does manage to interrupt any abilities that might have been able to save him from that. A little bit of damage, taking the Blood Priest down to a quarter health. And we do see the Ranid's doing a lot of damage to the Blood Shield. Not entirely sure how effective that can be. Then we see, of course, this Blood Priest does use his ultimate on himself once again in order to save his recovery health. Really, really good ultimate right there. How it pretty much can, given really good positioning, save both your life and then also deal huge amounts of damage and also blind the entire enemy team at the same time. Okay. So from the Cold Team, we don't see any spaces from the start. We do see the Wind Bomb go off directly. We do see, of course, that Ranid, he used his stealth and then he kind of moved around. Nobody was quite sure who he was going to hit, so that was good there. Pomp does take insects to the face and does lose a whole lot of health because the Nomad was, of course, able to capitalize on that. Continued pressure on the Cycle Pump until he used his other side, switching over to the Ranid. He now has ultimate. He's trying to line it up, but it looks like the Warm Team is privy to what he likes to do and is no longer lining up exactly how they want him to do it. And he does use his stealth, trying to line up still. He might be holding on to this too long, but it misses the entire Warm Team. That was huge. No energy on the Cold Team except for this EX here on the Cycle Pump. Blood Priest does use his EX Sphere in order to move in on the Cycle Pump. Ranid is healing off in the corner. He might not be able to escape without getting any damage. He does get taken down quite a bit. EX Blind on the Blood Priest. He does use his EX insects in order to protect himself. That allowed him to get all the way back up to full health, or full recovery health at that point. We do see the Ranid, he moved in without any recovery health, so the entire time that he was getting DPS, the Pomp was trying to catch up with his damage. So we don't see any recovery health on the Psychopomp at this point. Trying to use a defensive ultimate right there in order to block off the Ranid. We do see that the Pomp is going down to about 25% health. The Ranid is, of course, still really low, but his recovery health has been doing pretty good. Of course, also, so has the Blood Priest. He hasn't let his recovery health drop at all. We see a defensive EX1 from the Nomad in order to protect. And also here a Breakstone. Not sure who that comes from. The Nomad has popped Gurgans a little bit. And there goes down the Blood Priest. Wasn't even paying attention to that. And the Cold team pulling out their first victory, saying we're not going to go down without a fight. Kudos to them for taking down the Warm team here. They could actually come out as the victors here. They could come out with a 4-0 victory from this point on. We'll see if that happens. So even more of a defensive style from the Warm team and offensive style. The Warm team seems to be completely in tune with what the Cold team is going to be doing. That's why the Ranid lost pretty much 25% of his health. And now the Cold team is trying to figure out exactly how they can crack this nut. The Ranid is trying to run off in this direction here. Doesn't seem like he did all that much healing. In fact, he hit the Blood Priest blood shield at that point. Meanwhile, Nomad was attacking the Psychopomp, dealing a considerable amount of damage. He, of course, did lose quite a bit. And the Blood Priest does have his ultimate. We'll see how that goes down, if he's going to use it once again as a defensive heal. We do see that the Nomad doesn't have any recovery health whatsoever. He's losing a lot of health at this point, all the way down to 50%. At the same time, the Blood Priest was taking a considerable amount of damage, does manage to use that space in order to escape from the ultimate attack from the Nomad. And of course, a defensive EX Boomerang allowed the Blood Priest to get into a better position. Psychopomp still at a really low health situation. Looks like Warm team's trying to split up the Cold team. They don't want them to be together. They want to focus all of their attention on the Psychopomp. Looks like Ranid is once again using his Bloodline Medallion, but I'm not sure if he knows that his healer is off here. He's getting cornered and he's getting hit by an ultimate and a whole lot of boomerangs. His other side is only going to protect him for so long. The Nomad knows exactly where he is, cornering him once again. Manages to escape using his mind transfer. This could be the end of the Psychopomp, but he uses his other side just in time before that insect dot does take him down. He's in the corner once again. He could use his EX space in order to escape or to get a better position. The Ranid has no recovery health whatsoever. He's taking a lot of damage directly to normal. Uses the Breakstone in order to get out of that Tornado Call. Other side does concede the energy rune to the Nomad, but he did manage to escape, just surviving for long enough, using the EX space in order to escape from that EX Boomerang. And we do see a recovery health advantage for the Warm team into EX Sphere and some insects in order to take out the Psychopomp. That was just enough in order to take out his recovery health and normal health. And of course, we do see the fog is coming in. We see that there's not really an advantage for the Warm team in terms of normal health, but if the Ranid takes any damage from the fog, that's not going to be any good for him. And of course, the Warm team does claim their 4th victory here. It will only take one more victory for them to take the whole game. We'll see how that goes. And at this point, it might all come down to the Ranid and what he does here in the beginning. He does jump the same way that he's always directly onto the Blood Priest into Cloak, and he's taking a whole lot of damage because the Worm team has pretty much figured out exactly what he's doing each time. Zowie, the Psychopomp, hasn't been taking all that much damage due to his good positioning in the defensive style, using the EX space in order to do a little bit of damage directly to normal health on that Blood Priest. He does have his ultimate. Blood Priest uses his space in order to escape from the Ranid's ultimate. He uses it to actually heal himself, which is a pretty good move. He was low on recovery health at that point. We do see a lot of, we do see a lot of burst on this Ranid. He's in a little bit of a bad position. He wants to get into a better one. He does use the stun on the Blood Priest into darts, into bomb, but the Blood Priest does dodge that, and a little bit of energy for the Ranid. He might be looking for another ultimate, but the Psychopomp does go down due to a combo. Let me try that again. Combo between the Blood Priest and the Nomad. There we do see a double ultimate from the Ranid, but it might not do all that much. It does manage to kill off the Nomad, and now we're going to see a 1 versus 1 with the Blood Priest. We of course know that Blood Priest is pretty good at 1 versus 1. He does have that blood shield in order to negate any damage. That space probably was a misclick. He didn't end up where he wanted to be. He does have the dot from insects on him, and that finishes him off. Worm team, Billowing Belugas, congratulations for their win, a 5-0 victory here in the second round. We're going to go to the second game for the second round here right now. Here we are in game number 5. This will determine who goes on to the grand finals. We of course see here the team Subfresh on Worm team and Space Pirates. We saw them in the 3rd and 4th games. This was the composition that was of course without healers, and managed to, using a offensive style, pretty much take out a Psychopomp and Herald. I mean, not Herald, Harbinger. So we do see the same offensive style right here. But Worm team seems to be pretty defensive, using the M1 into Moonstone in order to keep the Astronomer from damage. The Stalker seems to be getting kited a little bit. He took a whole lot of damage. Meanwhile, the Gunner was 1 versus 1 in the Engineer and dealing a whole bunch of damage to him. A burst combo from the Stalker takes out the Astronomer, but a responsive ultimate from the Gunner does does take out the Stalker and the Engineer at the same time. Flames coming off of the Gunner, almost like a Super Saiyan kind of power up from him, because he did take out the entire Cold team at the same time right there. That was quite impressive. So we're going to see what the Cold team's response to that is, see if they turn up their offense, or maybe if they're going to kind of stick back here on the staircase area. It does seem like Outcast might be doing a little bit of smack talk in the all chat, because he was staying still. Here we go. We do see a focus on the Astronomer. His trance does get procced, but a execute is dodged with space. There we go. We do see the Stalker's down at half health. He does go a little bit farther down, and ultimate from BAP does take down the Engineer all the way down to 15% health, and an M1 in the back does take him out. So we see the Astronomer took a hell of a lot of damage, but he was able to heal it all up. and stay alive while the gunner does all of the damage. That is, of course, naturally what you want to do in a healer and damage composition, is you just want to stay alive for as long as possible, because you really have the advantage the longer the game goes on. We saw a stealth into a spell block from the gunner, but it was completely dodged into a puncturing strike and ghost blade from the stalker. We see that there is a whole lot of coordination coming off of the blue team here, as they do take down the astronomer down to 25% health. A meter was in fact blocked by Gurgans. It might have been worth it in order to just take that Gurgans off a little bit sooner. See even more tunneling on this astronomer, as it seems to be the flavor of the day is to CC the DPSer and to tunnel down the healer. And that is, of course, what we saw there. Maybe we can see another one of these clutch 2 versus 1s from BAP and see if he can maybe take out the stalker and the engineer, maybe at the same time. There we see again. Very nice placement from the gunner's mortars. He does take out the stalker, and now it's a 1 versus 1 between an engineer and a gunner. I'd have to say, given how much range a gunner has, he might actually have the advantage here. He also does have the energy advantage, but not the health advantage. He throws away his energy advantage right there on the EX execute. Doesn't hit. Saw a little bit of footsies there as they were playing around with each other, and the energy is about to come up. A lot of damage going on this engineer. He's trying to do a composition of his space into flamethrower. It does work out. He used his shrink ray in order to interrupt any kind of opposition from the gunner. That was a very well executed combo. It didn't leave very much room for the gunner to do all that much against it, and of course dealt a huge amount of damage, giving him the advantage if it did go on for longer than that. So we still see even more aggressive style from the Worm team than we saw from last time. He's using this execute in order to zone. The gunner got too close. I mean, not the gunner, the engineer got too close. Defensive mortar, lots of damage going down on this engineer. Trance was not proc. That means that the alchemist is going to take a lot of damage. Moonstone into blind. Stalker dispels it using his cloak, but ultimate does go down on this engineer here, breaking the Gurgans with his space. Now he's going to heal up in the corner. However, that leaves the stalker at 25% health to fend for himself. The engineer does get caught in the corner trying to heal up, does go into an EMP into conch shell combination in order to escape. Even more damage on the stalker as he was trying to peel it off. Now it's time for the engineer to see if he can do a 2 versus 1. Does do a little bit of damage by using that shrink ray, but of course it was at a kind of an awkward time because the astronomer just spaces onto him in M1. So all in all, the Cold team has been aggressive for most of it, but we've been steadily seeing the Warm team become more and more aggressive. Here we even see a stealth all the way up to the beginning of the middle of the map in order to do a little bit of zoning, but Cold team was ready for that. They just do some counter pressure and move the astronomer back a little bit. Lots of pressure going out on this engineer. He didn't have all that much to do. However, lots of damage. Meteor directly on this astronomer. He doesn't get his trance proc, which of course means he's going to take even more damage. He does use his EX heal in order to heal himself back up, but at the same time there was a lot of damage going down on that gunner as he was getting hit by EMP and conch shell from the engineer at the same time. So we see the comeback from the Cold team. They seem to be sticking back a little bit more, letting the Warm team get aggressive, and then coordinating a burst at exactly the right time when the Warm team is a little bit weak. We see an EMP does dispel the cloak, revealing exactly where that execute's going to come from, making it a little bit easier to dodge. Missing the Moonstone on the stalker right there. The stalker is pretty low right here, but he's going to go straight in, taking a stun off of that space. He cloaks and goes straight in for the gunner instead of going for the astronomer, who seemed to be expecting it. A whole lot of M1s directly on this gunner right here was dealing a huge amounts of damage. The Engineer finishes that off with a conch shell. Stalker doesn't really even seem to notice all of the damage that he took from the Astronomer just at that moment. Manages to escape from the Moonstone. So we're seeing a lot of comebacks here from the Cold team as they, like I said, they're waiting for the aggressive Warm team to kind of feel a little bit comfortable, and then they move in and they deal a lot of damage using combos and kind of coordinated attacks. So once again, we see the Warm team, the Gunner actually spaced up into Mortar, didn't hit any of that, kind of pressuring using his M1s, does use a stealth, but he then reveals his location with M1s. We see a little bit of damage on the Warm team, just a little bit of chip. Now the Cold team is taking a little bit of damage. Engineer gets hit by an Execute, so now he's down to half health. Astronomer's trance did not get procced. We do see a Gurgons on the Engineer, and he kind of gets stealth, but doesn't matter whatsoever. Warm team going to wrap this up for a very convincing 4th victory for them. If they get one more, this could be game for them. We'll see what the response from Cold team is. They have to get, of course, 2 more rounds in order to finish up this series in their favor. We'll see how they try and do that. Once again, we see a space from the Gunner getting up into that position, uses the Execute in order to zone some, and a Mortar. Doesn't seem to be hitting anything. He does hit his crippling shot, and the Stalker is taking huge amounts of damage and then gets Moonstone, so the Warm team is allowed to reset. Meteor trying to go for the Stalker. He's so low. Actually, that's the Engineer right there. He's all the way down to 15% health. Gets his spell block on his own MP. Gunner is really low, all the way down to 25% health into a Ghost Dagger, and then the Engineer goes down by a straight M1 at just the right moment. Here we see the Stalker is all by himself. Of course, he's at 15% health. He's going to try and take this out using the projectile attacks that he has. Nice double puncturing strike there allows him to kill off the Astronomer. It looked like the Astronomer might have been sitting still there, talking a little bit of trash talk. I'm very glad to see that Stalker was able to take him out at that point. He is letting the Gunner heal up a little bit. Did not heal up himself. That Mortar could have been dangerous right there, but he manages to get a puncturing strike off. It's pretty much just a whole lot of, for the Stalker, just space in, puncturing strike, and then run away. Just keep on staying with that kind of combo. He doesn't necessarily want the Gunner to take this energy room, but there's not all that much he can do about it. He's going to try to heal up. We'll see right here if either one of them decides to interrupt their own Bloodline Medallion, but it doesn't look like he's going to. I would normally expect to see the Gunner go for a resurrection, but not going to do that. He's just going to go for a complete heal up all the way to the beginning, using that Mortar, probably trying to interrupt, but now he's going for the resurrection. He's probably not going to get it in time. The Stalker does grab the energy room. He now has enough for an EX. We'll see how he what he does with that. Probably best would be to use a EX puncturing strike, because you do get quite a bit of damage from that, but only if you can actually ensure the damage from it. We see that the Gunner cloaks in order to run away. The Stalker did lose track of his movements, and Stalker's down to 15% health. He does use that EX puncturing strike, but it didn't do nearly enough damage. Victory goes to Warm team, which is of course called Sup Fresh. We'll see them going to the grand finals against Billowing Belugas here in a minute. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the grand finals for the Super Pro Cup December 23rd between Sup Fresh and Billowing Belugas. We'll see which one of these teams can come out on top. It is, of course, going to be a first to 5 game here. We do see a quick advantage from the Cold team. They do get a spell block off from the Blood Priest and a Astronomer's M1. Not all that much going on between these two, but he does use a execute on the Nomad, taking the Nomad all the way down to 25% health. They of course want to capitalize on that right now. A meteor does finish off the Nomad before he can actually be healed up by the Blood Priest. Do see an EX Sphere in order to remove that gunner from combat and into insects. The Astronomer did take quite a bit of damage during that duration. We do see that the gunner is taking a little bit of damage from hitting that blood shield right there, but the Blood Priest did take a whole lot of damage from burst combos from the gunner, and also that Astronomer's ultimate did do, let's see, actually, it did do, if I can find it, where is the damage? Oh, it appears like the Astronomer's ultimate did not actually do any damage, which is very interesting. The Blood Priest possession was fast enough in order to dodge that. See a lot of AoEs going out in the center, giving the Worm team a little bit of a disadvantage in terms of how many cooldowns they have, taking down the Nomad by about 25% health. We do see an execute go down on this Blood Priest. He's down to about half health, and the Astronomer's getting a little bit aggressive in order to capitalize on that. No recovery health on the Blood Priest, but the Nomad was dealing significant damage to the gunner and taking him down to 25% health. But the gunner managed to capitalize on a Moonstone on the Blood Priest, dealing huge amounts of damage to the Nomad. Once again, we see the Nomad gets the Blood Shield for the most part in order to become aggressive. He could take the Energy Rune at this point, but concedes it to the gunner, who actually took a huge amount of damage in the process. That Tornado Call couldn't be at a worse timing. It was, in fact, allowing the Nomad, the gunner to dodge those insects. And we see a little bit of a Moonstone on the Blood Priest in order to heal up a little bit. It seems like he's going for a lot of damage in order to try and finish this up, missing a meteor. Tries to proc a trance, but once that goes down, there's really it opens up the Astronomer to a lot of damage at that point. Once you know that Astronomer doesn't have his trance, then you can deal huge damage to him. So, Billowing Belugas, they have a very defensive style, and that probably favors them in this map. There's, of course, these two pillars right here for them to hide behind, especially against a ranged composition that has a gunner in it. We did see a execute hit the Blood Priest right there, and a spell block on the X-Strike that allows for a lot of pressure, forward pressure from the gunner. The Astronomer goes a little bit aggressive on the Nomad. Of course, he can heal up any damage that he takes off of that blood shield, but now he's in the corner. He gets hit by a Tornado Call and execute directly on the Nomad. However, recovery health building up very quickly. The gunner, however, does not have any recovery health and a fear on the Astronomer. He needs to get out of there at this point, using space in order to heal up the gunner at this point. We do see a ultimate is on both of the healers. We're just looking for a situation where they can use it. The Astronomer was blind from those insects, but decided to use his ultimate anyway, but that allowed for a counter ultimate from the Blood Priest, which resulted in his death. It might have been a better timing for him to wait for after the blind to come off, or to dispel it using a trance if he was sure that he was going to take an M1 after that. But of course, we would never know if that would actually occur. Okay, so we're seeing this offensive style from the Cold team. He does use the space in the beginning. It does land a fear on himself. The Astronomer revealing the position of that gunner using his M2, in fact. And the Cold team trying to be aggressive, but not really finding the exact moment where they can do that, using the EX space in order to jump on the Blood Priest. But the shield was up in time. There goes a nice meteor, nicely timed in order to hit that EX Sphere, but the gunner takes a huge amounts of damage from an X strike from the Nomad. Of course, they want to capitalize on that as much as possible. Once again, Astronomer going offensive, and he takes an EX execute to the face. Blood Priest does go down. So now we see the Cold Team resetting. The Nomad tried to use an EX X-Strike because the Astronomer used his space, but he was able to dodge out of that just fine. Didn't even go through his recovery health at all. So we see a evening up here in the score, 2-2 between the teams. We'll see if this continues on to be a pretty even matchup between the two teams all the way up till the final. We do see an aggressive space and a sluggish on the Gunner, but he still hits his spell block. The Blood Priest was behind the pillar, so he could not get hit by that execute into blind on the Nomad. He might be able to pick up this energy rune. Yes, the Nomad was being a little bit aggressive due to the presence of that. Also, Nomad uses his haste, so that opens up the possibility for the Gunner to use his ultimate, taking a lot of damage from that X-Strike. And now Blood Priest has his ultimate. He could use this at a moment. There we go. We see the space from the Astronomer, but the Blood Priest wasn't in a position in order to use it in time. So we're waiting for the Gunner to use his space, but the Blood Priest uses his ultimate possibly prematurely. Didn't do all that much damage. See some pressure going in from the Gunner. He has his ultimate, possibly waiting for a cooldown, but no, he decides to use it anyway, not doing all that much damage. One hit goes out on the Blood Shield, missing an execute and a Moonstone. Here we see the Nomad has his ultimate, but decides to use it on a Gurgans instead in order to dodge all that damage from the Astronomer's ultimate. See that the Nomad, the Gunner is getting a little bit close. He is taking tick damage from that ultimate, so the Astronomer had to space onto him. We see a little bit of zoning possibly from that ultimate. Either that or it was just mistimed. They figured that they would spend a bit more time together. Now, we do see an ultimate on the Astronomer. He decides to use it right as soon as he is out of CC, taking down the Blood Priest to quite low. However, we're seeing a lot of burst damage on the Gunner from the Nomad, and managing to take out the Blood Priest using a Meteor. So, the Cold Team takes the advantage right here. Subfresh pulling into the lead, possibly with their offensive tactics. We'll see how the Warm Team reacts to that. Cold Team does use his Gunner's space right off from the beginning, seeming to start off with the Mortar and the Execute into the Astronomers, doing a lot of damage, and actually not necessarily doing damage, but actually dealing out some pressure, but taking damage at the same time. He's now down to a quarter health, using Blood Priest using Fear in order to push them back a little bit more. Missed that, but now the Gunner is down to half health, not all that much recovery health, building it up slowly. The Astronomer is probably going to go aggressive here on the Blood Priest here. The Gunner does have full recovery health, so he does have an opportunity to do that. We see a Meteor that was dodged by the Blood Priest's face. We do see an EX X-Strike from the Nomad. It doesn't even go through recovery health. And we see an Astronomer's ultimate being interrupted by the Blood Priest space. And Gunner's recovery health is getting really, really low here. He does manage to get it back up before that X-Strike, which was good timing from him. We do see that the Blood Priest is trying to F1 up in the corner, but it gets interrupted. The Nomad's so low on recovery health, he needs to be... well, now it's back up. So he was being a little bit aggressive. We do see that the Blood Priest has his ultimate, possibly waiting for the Cold Team to be aggressive. They are taking a stance back here in the back. There we see that the Cold Team was aggressive. Whole lot of damage from that ultimate. Of course, spawning that troll face symbol on the bottom of his corpse at that exact moment. So, getting energy from the middle, or not, actually, deciding not to take that. And then the Nomad, of course, finishes him off using an ultimate. Kind of close there, as his health was only at 37 at that point. Anything could have taken him out at that moment, even like a dot, maybe. And the Blood Priest wasn't even in position to heal if that were to happen. Okay, we're going to see if the Cold team continues on with their aggressive style, of course going into space, into Mortar, and we do see a Moonstone on the Nomad. This does spell a little bit of pressure onto the Worm team, and the Astronomer's going in. He doesn't get a proc on his trance. He's taking a lot of damage from the insects. He's blind. He has no idea where to go. X-Strike, the Nomad was positioned properly in order to block off the retreat. We see even more damage going out on the Astronomer. He did get a trance proc, so that means that he was able to escape and reset the match, but we still do see a health advantage from the Worm team. They don't necessarily have the energy advantage as the Astronomer uses his ultimate on the Blood Priest. Didn't do all that much damage. The Blood Priest is still, of course, at 75% health, no recovery health whatsoever for either one of them on Cold team, managing to get it back up. The Nomads being super aggressive here does accidentally hit a trance using that comeback from the Tornado Call. Seeing some zoning here, but a nice X-Strike on the Astronomer takes him down past recovery health. They want to capitalize on that immediately, trying to force him to space, possibly so that the Nomad can do an EX1 on the Astronomer, of course getting that Boomerang Storm. There goes a double ultimate from the Worm team. The Astronomer had no idea what he was spacing into at that point, taking both members of the Cold team out at the same time. Of course, taking the Worm team up to 4 victories. If they get one more, that is of course it. They win the whole tournament. We do see the same aggressive style from the Cold team. We'll see how that works out for them there. Missing a Moonstone, the Astronomer jumps in, hitting the Blood Shield. I think actually that Blood Shield was a little bit late. Fear interrupts that execute into insects, into a meteor that actually misses, and then the Blood Priest does get to space out. He's on a little bit of a bad position up against this wall, but the Nomad was able to do significant damage to the Gunner using his X-Strike into ultimate combo. And we see a lot of damage going down on the Astronomer here. They do manage to reset, however they have the health disadvantage. They could possibly pick up the energy rune. It's coming up in about 2 seconds or so. There it is, and we'll see who actually gets to take this. The Nomad is doing a lot of zoning. We see a Moonstone. It's not enough. Yes, it is actually enough to grab the energy rune for the Cold team. We see that the Astronomer has his ultimate, uses it to heal the Gunner. He actually had, the Gunner had his ultimate interrupted by a space and several combos from the Nomad. The Astronomer spaces out into a EX X-Strike from the Nomad, and that causes the 5th and final victory for the Worm team. Congratulations to Billing Belugas for their win of the Super Pro Cup tournament. Thank you everyone for watching, and I'll see you next time.